The first time I had an anxiety attack, and this was before the experience I had with you, which I'll go into. I was in bed. It was when we first moved into that small house that I lived in when we first
Yeah.
hung out. And I was asleep, and I woke up at 2 a.m. Just woke up, and I was laying there. And sometimes when I'm laying on my chest, I don't know if you get this, you can feel your heartbeat.
Yeah.
And it was just like ka-dunk, ka-dunk. And my heart rate gets down. I have my Garmin watch, and I know that it gets like 45 beats per minute, whatever it is, really low because you're relaxed. And I was just listening to it, and it just started going ka-dunk, ka-dunk, ka-dunk. And I was just listening. I'm like, oh, it's getting a little faster. Ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk. And then it started to go faster and faster. Now, I think what was happening was my brain was making it go faster because I was getting worried about it. And this crazy cycle of mental and physical things started to conflate. And it just got to the point where I jumped up and was like, and I just looked, I didn't know what to do. And it's kind of like when you're a kid, except instead of calling for your mother, your wife is right there. And I woke up my wife. I'm like, babe, wake up, wake up. Something's going on. I don't know what it is. My heart is racing. I'm a bit worried. And she's like, are you sure you're all right? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I feel like I should call somebody. And she said, well, yeah, of course, call somebody, because the liability on her head, if she said no and I died, I mean, she would feel terrible.
For that reason alone.
That is the only reason. It's like,
Yeah.
he's a big guy. I have to move him. So I called, so for those, if you're in America watching this, I called 999. 999. No, I didn't. 111. Is that what it is? I don't remember now.
And 999 is that the emergency response?
Yeah, it wasn't the emergency because I wasn't like I wasn't dying. So I think it was 111.
It might have been 111,
which is the I'm not sure if shit's going down, but I'm not like dying. So I called 111, and they said, okay, are you, which is kind of now a checklist for me. Are you sweating? Are you having trouble breathing? It's funny. You're like, you stop and you're like breathing, and you're like, is this how I was breathing before? Am I breathing correctly? Let's go with yes, I'm breathing correctly. And okay, is your chest tight? And I was like, no, everything. Honestly, I feel like an absolute asshole now. I'd like to get off the phone. I feel fine, because the person on the phone just was going through all these bits, and everything was fine. And they said, okay, well, if you feel funny, then let me know in the morning. Let me know. Call us and give us a call. And I ended up just going to the sofa, which turned into a pattern, and played FIFA at like 2, 3 a.m. And I stayed up that night. And this was the first time I ever called out ill from my job where we worked together. And just because I hadn't slept that night. And I just said, look, and I never called off, and I didn't feel guilty about it. I just said, I can't come in. I said, I was up ill last night. I wasn't physically ill, but there was something not right. And then after that, I was fine. I just thought, I think I was just, maybe I ate something that was funny, and that was about it. So that was my first instance. And then when I had my first panic attack was with you. Do you remember that day?
I do, mate. Yeah, I won't forget that, because I'd gone through it prior to you and spoke to you all about it. So you were one of my confidants at work that I could be open and honest about it. I mean, as it happens, mate, I'm happy to admit you were amazing support for me. And that's a big part of helping you get through anything. It's just knowing there's people around you can talk to. So, yeah, that was huge. And then selfishly, mate, I'm going to be honest back with you now. There was part of me that actually felt really good of that happening. Selfishly, It was like, oh, I'm not so fucked up. Like, I'm not alone. Like, there other people experience this as well. And I was kind of like, well, yeah, Shawn, these are the type of things that happen. And I can remember you being just slightly dismissive of it. Like, oh, it's fine. It must have been you were not, and I was thinking, I think he's actually experiencing what I am. And I felt a sense of relief from it. I wanted you to be okay, but I knew you would be, because you're generally more chilled than me, and you would get over this easier than I would. And, I'm not alone. So that was just genuinely how I felt. So yes, I do remember.
It's funny because that situation itself, it's interesting because beforehand, and I've checked with you to talk about this. So I'm going to talk about when you called me, which was just probably about a month before this happened. And it's interesting because the first time I realized that you were having some challenges, we hanging out at work that day. Everything was normal. I got home and then you called me. I remember you called me and you said, Shawn, I don't know. I forget. I'm trying to remember exactly how you worded it. But you're like, I don't really know what to do. It was something along the lines of, I need to get out. You know, I said, are you okay? And you said, I don't know. And you were really confused. You just felt like you needed to get out. You didn't know where to go. And I can identify with that feeling now. But I
Yeah,
can't remember the exact wording because my head was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to help you? What's going on? But there was like a sense of fear in your voice. It was almost as if somebody was in your house. You were in the closet and
mm,
you were trying to get somebody to come over and help get you out. And it was quite it impacted me quite a bit because it was like I realized, okay, you I didn't know what to do because I think for me I felt a bit helpless because I didn't understand the situation and you were just reaching out to somebody that you didn't know, and I can identify, and I don't know if this is correct or not. You were just trying to find some sort of outlet that took your mind
I was
off of
scared, mate.
where.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and that was for me just before that happened. So understanding that and understanding that this, and I think at that point I thought maybe this is some sort of an anxiety thing. Probably about a month and a half later. Um, and let me be clear, the thing that I had with my work must have been really stressful for us at this time. I had my night thing. I think it actually would have been 2 or 3 months beforehand, and then I think it was no, it's actually a couple months after we were walking into town. So where we worked, we would always go for a walk every day.
yeah.
It's amazing we're not married. So we would go for a walk every day. And when we walked into town, I remember just walking. We were talking. I think we were talking about football, and I remember the corner it was on when I had my first panic attack. I remember the second we came to the corner. There was a Morrison's. For those who don't know, that's a supermarket, and we were right on the corner, about to cross the street to the Morrison's. And all of a sudden, I felt lightheaded out of nowhere, like I was going to pass out. Like it started to go black. I wasn't thinking about anything. I remember even making jokes about something just before then, and I felt like a bit of dizziness, and then that little twinge of dizziness put me in panic mode. And I just remember we saw an ambulance, a paramedic across the
Yeah,
street at the Morrisons. And I sat down and you said, are you
I
all
ran and
right?
got.
Yeah, I was freaking out because I am invincible. Nothing's wrong with me physically. I felt fine. And all of a sudden my head's dizzy and it's swimming.
Yeah,
And what it's interesting, all of these little events that changed my physicality and the rest of my life. What linked into that same month, uh, what's his name? The Bolton footballer who almost died on the pitch, Maurice
oh,
uh,
begins with the, was it an M? I can't. Is it
Moamba.
Muambo or it was something
Yeah,
along those lines? Yeah, I remember that.
he
God,
he was running on the pitch. He felt dizzy, and he
yeah,
fell over, and his heart stopped.
yeah.
And just by happenstance, my brain, as soon as I felt dizzy, remembered that moment and just decided this. I
This
am a
is it.
medical doctor.
Yeah,
I'm having
this is
a
the
heart
answer.
issue.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've spoken about it to this degree. It's very weird.
No, keep going,
Um,
mate. This is great.
so we went into the ambulance and they had me take off my shirt. I was a bit heavier then, and I was really worried that everyone could see my tits. I remember that. I remember everybody could see my
Because they
boobs.
had the back door open, didn't they?
Yeah, it was just like,
Yeah.
hey. I was like, could you shut that? It was just like this is really weird. And they had the heart monitors on and they were checking everything. And I'm like, all right, just keep breathing. You're having a heart attack, clearly. Just keep it going. And they were just like checking on me. They're like, your pressure's a bit up, but that's to be expected. And pretty much I said, you're okay, you're fine.
Hmm.
And I remember we left and I didn't go into the shop, and we started walking back, and all of a sudden my jaw started to lock. And I
Hmm.
know in my head, I'm like, that's the symptom for a heart attack. And I've never done any surgery. And I'm like, I'm just thinking to myself, and you're like, and you knew that I was having a panic attack because you were,
Yeah.
as a friend, you're like, let's just keep walking, just keep walking. And I'm thinking, what the hell is, I'm having a heart attack, mate. My jaw is locked. And I'm just like, no, trust you. He wouldn't, the paramedic wouldn't tell me to move on. He wouldn't.
Exactly.
So I just kept walking, just letting like everything, and just it would just lock up. I'd feel this jaw locking up terribly. And I ended up getting back to work. I think I spoke to our boss at the time. and just said, "Look, I almost passed out. I don't know what's going on." And she was really understanding of it. And I didn't really do much the rest of the day. I just couldn't focus. I just sat in my chair, wanted to get
Yeah.
through the day. And then I came home and told my wife, and I went to the doctor the
Can I
next
just
day.
interrupt you just briefly there,
Please.
Shawn? Sorry to
Yeah.
do that, because I want to just check in on something, because this might be something some of the viewers might resonate with if they've experienced it. How are you physically? Because whenever I've gone through an episode like that, I feel exhausted. Like after
I
coming
was,
off the phone from you, and you just feel like you are drained. Like
yeah.
after it,
And I think that's exactly why I didn't do shit at work. I just felt
yeah,
like I just wanted to lay down and curl up in a ball.
yeah,
I felt like I had just finished, like a 2 hour practice session or training or lifting session. I was just like out of it.
white knight,
And
yeah,
yeah. So just got home and I just said to my wife, this happened. I probably should see somebody. And that night, I remember we were sitting there. I was laying down watching TV, and I felt like the heart starting to race again. And I sat up, and I just felt like, and it came out of nowhere. I just, and you know me, I'm not somebody who is ever really ill, or I'm not somebody who's a complainer when it comes to my physicality. I soldier on, if I'm
agreed,
wet, yeah, I wear shorts in the winter. I wear shorts all the time. There's just physically, I just sort of, go for it. If I'm out camping and my shoes are wet, I just suck it up. If I've got a
yeah,
sore knee, I deal with it. And that invincibility cloak felt like it had been lifted. And I had this unknown quantity going on that my body and my mind were negotiating. Do I have something that's wrong? So that night I felt like the best way I could explain it, this was different than the dizzy sense. I stood up and I felt like all of a sudden I'm like, something's wrong, babe. And she said, what? And I think she kind of knew it was anxiety, probably didn't know how to talk to me about it. Because, in my head, I was thinking again, when are these people going to realize I am on death's door?
I've had 3 heart attacks today.
She was almost like, why don't you just lay down and chill out? And I'm just thinking to myself, you are gambling on my life right now. I don't understand this. I am right now feeling like something's going to happen. And it was just sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, but just like, I just had to stand up and just, oh, what's going on? And just walk around the room. And I said, okay, maybe I am fine. I'm just going to play FIFA. And if I can play FIFA and I can focus on that, then fine. If I can focus on FIFA, I'm not dying. These are the conversations I'm having, and a little bit embarrassing now, but very embarrassing at the time.
Yeah.
So went to the doctor, and it's interesting how I love the National Health Service here. And one of the things they said, okay, well, we have to be safe. I don't see anything physically wrong with you, but you were dizzy, so we're going to set you up for a heart scan thing. They put things on you and you wear it for like 24 hours. And I said,
I
okay.
remember that.
And
Yeah, you wore that for a while, didn't you?
I wore it for a week, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So the National Health Service, because there was nothing physically wrong with me, blood pressure was fine. There was, heart rate was good. Everything was ticking along fine, but they had to be safe and check it. They said, okay, so in about 6 weeks, we've got you scheduled to go and wear this thing, and we can do a real comprehensive check. And I said, okay, so what happens if I feel dizzy? Should I just not worry about it? Am I fine? And I think due to liability, this doctor said, well, I can't say for certain, if you feel like you're dizzy and you call 999, don't play around with it. And I thought, oh, so I could be, really in a bad way. They didn't say no. So the next night, the next day and the next night, I was just anxious the whole time. And I couldn't, like, we were walking our dog at the time. That was when we just had Kai. And Kai's my Labrador. And I had to stop every 10 minutes because I felt dizzy. And Nick, my wife, was really patient. And it was just, I couldn't sleep that night. And the next day I just felt like I was dying. I couldn't eat, which is very unlike me. I couldn't, I had like just drinking water for me. And even to this day, this is one of my tools is water. I call it my healing drink. It's just sort of like that's psychologically what fixes me. And then I went to the doctor the next day and I said, I can't cope. I can't live like this. I haven't slept in 2 days and I'm constantly worried. And she still wouldn't give me that sign off for understandable reasons that everything was fine. So my wife fortunately had private health care and she could sign me up onto it. Went into private health care. And instead of waiting 6 weeks and going through 6 weeks of anxiety, I was in 3 days later, and they put a harness on me, and every time I felt like my heart, because my heart skips a beat sometimes. Every time my heart skipped a beat, I pushed a button, so they knew, okay, when the heart monitor goes to that point, then we'll check that point. So it's like a little marker.
Yeah.
And they had a blood pressure thing. I remember sleeping on the couch because it would go off in the middle of the night, and it would just get really tight, and just randomly the blood pressure would go off. And I didn't have any panic attacks because I'm like, shit's getting done. We're sorting this thing out.
You're on it.
We're gonna find out that I've got hypertension, and I'm gonna have heart attacks, and then we're just gonna get some tubes in me or whatever. Let's get this thing sorted. And I went into the doctor, and she said, "You're fine. You are really healthy." Almost shocked because I'm a fat piece of shit. She's like, really, I expected something. You know, the flop sweat on you is just ridiculous. You should have clearly something wrong with you. She's like, you're in tremendously healthy shape. Genetically, you're very lucky. I was like, oh, well, that's good. She's like, you could lose a few pounds, but you don't, you know, you're all your tests tell me that you're actually somebody who's not morbidly obese. So I was good for a week. And then moving forward, hope I'm not boring you, but moving forward.
No, mate, this is good. Keep going, mate.
So moving forward, then my brain could then sort out the feelings of anxiety. This is personal to me. So I could then say, okay, those feelings are bullshit. I don't have to worry about that. My body was saying, no, 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 no. We still have a problem. And the way it manifested itself was a thing called nocturnal panic attacks. So what happened, and this is something I've experienced, and I experience it to this day still occasionally, not to the degree it was, but I would be asleep, and there's a point when you're about to go from, I think, REM sleep to like the deep phase of sleep, where your mind is quite active. So that's when you start dreaming. I don't exactly know what that is, but as I fall asleep, and I'm like asleep for all intents and purposes, I'd wake up and go, and my arms would be numb, and I'd stand up dizzy, and I'm just trying to get my balance, and I'm racing to the bathroom for some reason to look at myself in the mirror. And as I'm running to the bathroom, I'm having a heart attack. I'm dying. Something's wrong. This is it. And then I get to the bathroom, I look in the mirror, and all of a sudden shit's starting to come back to consciousness. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm fine. And my heart is racing. So my Garmin's tell me I went from like 50 beats per minute to 120, 125. And it is ka-junk, ka-junk, ka-junk. I'm all geeked up. Back to FIFA. That's me for the rest of the night until I get tired at like 4 a.m. And this happened probably every few nights. I slept on the couch for up until the last year. I slept on the couch most of the time or in the spare room, which my wife's been really understanding about that. We're really tight, and you know, we don't have to sleep in the same room to be married. We are now. And it's just, I've gone through a process of just sort of like, for me, you know, I've got a process in mind to deal with that. And I'd say now I've gotten to the point. I don't want to I'll go into sort of how I've dealt with it, because I kind of want to hear a bit more about you. But you know, how I've dealt with it now, I sort of get up, and it's kind of funny to me when it happens, and I just turn right over and go back to sleep. You know,
Oh, right.
And I want to say that whatever we talk about today, we are not doctors. We are not psychologists. We are not here to tell anybody how to manage their anxiety. We're here to share our story. So I just want to throw that out there.